Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to the Lunch and Learn. My name's Joe. I'm not actually supposed to be doing the introduction, so this is the introduction to the introduction. But I would like to thank you for joining us. Hopefully you've got your lunch. If you're on the Mesa campus, if you're in Kirksville, it's just about nap time, I think, right? It's what comes around 2 p.m. and after, because it's cold and gray, and that's what you do when it's cold and gray. You get full and then you take a nap. However, you're here, and for better or worse, you're stuck with us. But I think we've got some good stuff put together for you today. And to give us the formal introductions, allow me to introduce my co-host, Kirsty Gaither, on the Mesa campus. Hi, Kirsty.
Hi, Joe, and thanks everyone for joining us for season 5. This is episode 6, and we're looking at the Staff Council and then A.T. Still's American Indian heritage. So we've got a lot programmed for today. It's going to be a really good episode. Today in Arizona, I have Hal Bright. He is the Arizona branch director of the A.T. Still Memorial Library, and he is the electronics resource librarian. And then over there in Missouri, back with Joe, we have Theresa Hunziker, and she is an admissions counselor, and also Jason Haxton. He's joining us from the Museum of Osteopathic Medicine, and he is the director there. And of course, we have Joe Vincent. So let's go ahead and start with the Staff Council. We've got a lot to cover today, and we're going to sort of first start about what is the Staff Council. So maybe Hal.
So the Staff Council is basically the staff voice for all staff members. The faculty has their faculty senate, and the staff members who aren't faculty are represented by the Staff Council.
And how do you join Staff Council?
Well, the Staff Council selected, it was, apparently this is my first lunch and learn.
We're live.
So a representative is, there's a representative from every school, and there's a representative that is on the, that represents each unit that's represented on the President's Council cabinet, or essentially every senior vice president. And to get on the Staff Council, you are selected by your organization. Some are elected in their schools, and then they're formally approved by their vice president or dean, and then approved by the Staff Council.
Awesome. And then once you're on the Staff Council, what does the Staff Council cover?
The Staff Council covers lots of topics. Usually they're topics that are brought forward by staff members. For instance, in 2017, we worked a lot on the telecommute policy that was brought up by a staff member, and then it was discussed, and then we went through the formal process of getting that into the policy manual.
Awesome. And before we go more into sort of what the Staff Council has done this past year, I do want to remind everyone that you can join us at live.atsu.edu before I forget. We are also streaming live on Facebook, and then all of the recordings will be at full HD on YouTube. So you can always find past subscriptions and episodes on our AT Still YouTube channel. So let's come back and let's talk about what the Staff Council has done this past year.
In the past year, we've been focused on the Know Your Mission campaign. I was asked by the president of the university to let the staff know the mission of the university. And so with the Staff Council in Missouri and in Arizona, we came up with a campaign. A lot of us may remember the Know Your Mission campaign, where we asked to memorize the campaign, memorize the mission of the university. Don't ask me that. Right? But then we also had 3 other facets. We had a whiteboard campaign where we went around in the winter. We asked all the staff members to write down what the mission meant to them on a whiteboard and took a picture of them. And then right now we're in a digital ads campaign. We've been trying to compress the mission into bite-sized chunks and provide those in digital ads.
And then sort of what's the end goal? So everyone will know our mission. Will they be better citizens because of that?
Well, the end goal is there's the official reason and the real reason. The real reason is the HLC visit, but the official reason is that so we can incorporate that into our job descriptions and know why we're doing our jobs and do it better.
So let's put Joe on the spot. Joe, how much can you recite of our AT Still mission?
You know, it depends on if I have my coffee cup in front of me or not. I think one of the best things that came out of this initiative was they ended up printing it on a lot of things, right? And there was a competition at one point where I feel like it was almost like East Berlin, where someone could demand your papers at any time. And so there were a couple of occasions where someone would stop me and be like, "Say the mission," and I wasn't sure what happened if you couldn't.
Right.
Typically something very important would come up right at that moment. I would get the phone call of a lifetime, or I can't remember. But I think at one point I could say the whole thing, and it's testing for everything else. You know, it's like geometry. You know, I used to know Pascal's theory or whatever it was called. Pythagorean theorem, not Pascal's theory. I know it's not Pascal's theory. Stop laughing at me, Jason.
And the point wasn't to memorize it, but to incorporate it into ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. I think so. If it accomplished anything, it did make it so that a lot of us looked at the mission statement for the first time, or at the very least looked at all of its pieces and started memorizing it in segments and sort of recognized some of the very lofty goals that are set even by the mission statement itself.
And I think to couple with that too, it's not just knowing the mission, but it's also understanding how you fit into the mission. So, and that's where like the actionables committee that we had comes in. It's what are you doing to really embody what ATSU stands for and what our mission is. So it's not just memorizing, it's really understanding, okay, this is how I exemplify.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, especially that it's not just memorizing part, because I was a little uncomfortable there for a minute. Thanks. Appreciate it. That's great. Okay, so Theresa, did we say at the beginning what your role is in this whole thing? How do you get into the staff council conversation?
Yeah, so I'm actually the chair of University Staff Council right now.
Yes, and hang on, I want to stop you because there's some disambiguation. That's the word of the week that needs to happen.
The word of the day.
Right, because I remember I worked with Hal in the last year a lot, and I think he was in that spot. But you guys both still have leadership roles in the current staff councils, if I'm not mistaken, or am I mistaken? I am mistaken. Hal is doing a very slight nod of his head.
So Hal used to be the University Staff Council chair.
Okay.
And now I've taken over that because each chair typically runs either a year or a 2-year term.
Okay.
And then once that's done, the next person takes over. So.
But aren't there campus-specific ones as well? And I guess, Hal, you don't have anything to do with that anymore either? You're just out the door. This is like President Emeritus.
He's on staff council.
Oh, you are still a staff council member. I like to point that out because I got an opportunity to see how busy you guys have been in the last year, just because some of the jobs that I end up doing. And I know that a lot of it comes back to the feedback that you receive or that you try to grab a lot of times. And I don't know how successful you are at that. Maybe that's some things we can talk about later. It looks on my notes here, it says that after the telecommute policy and know your mission, we want to talk about this year, and Theresa is the new chair of the whole university staff council, which represents all parts, right? Not just a campus.
Both campuses.
Cool. So what's up for this year after such a successful prior year?
We have a lot going on.
Yeah? I don't have it on my list, so you're literally going to have to tell me.
I will do that.
Okay, good.
So we've really tried to focus on 3 different things. First of all, it's finishing up with the HLC visit and making sure that everybody really understands the mission and getting that word out. So if you're like Joe was and you're put on the spot by somebody on staff council,
It's very uncomfortable.
It can be uncomfortable, but that's what we're doing. We're not just quizzing you just to quiz you. We also are trying to improve employee appreciation and engagement. So we've been doing that through quite a few different things. Each year we've been doing a Veterans Day celebration. We've been helping with holiday parties. In Arizona, they're really involved in the Christmas holiday party. For staff members, we do a Meet Your Staff Council Representatives event in the summer. So we'll pass out ice cream if you like ice cream. especially whenever it's hot out in Arizona, especially. So we'll do that. And there's just a lot of different things that we've been trying to do to really build that employee appreciation and engagement with Staff Council. We also have an employee commendables program that we have rolled out.
Oh, really?
Yes. So we're pretty excited about it. It's kind of a way to say thank you to somebody and give them accolades almost for doing something important or going above and beyond in their position or outside of their position. So what you can do is if you go to the Staff Council portal, we have a form that you can fill out, and you can basically say, so-and-so did this, thank you so much for doing this, I really appreciated it. There are different sections that you can pick from in terms of what they did falls in. And then you submit the form, and then they actually get a certificate that says you've received an employee commendable, thank you for this. Their supervisor is aware of the fact that they got a commendable, and then it's also posted on the quarterly update.
Look what I did.
If you can see.
This is the magic of technology.
Yep.
And Corey even saw what I was doing, so he just switched over. So I started by, I didn't even have any idea where to go. So I just Googled ATSU Staff Council.
Yep.
And that took me to this page. And then I clicked right down here, and I'm not going to do it again because when I clicked it, this page opened. Hang on, this page.
Yep.
And I'm looking, and here it is right here on the left. It says Employee Commendable Program. Yeah?
Yep. So if you just click on whichever campus you're on, it'll bring up the form, and you can submit it, fill out all the lovely, fun information.
Yeah, okay. What's next?
You're commending on, or the person that you're on, the campus that you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it looks like on this form is someone got access to the actual editable form and started to fill it out as though it were the fillable form. So that's a detail we'll have to go back and fix. But all you really need to know is in the name column is Joe Vincent. And then
Oh, goodness. This is somebody's actual form.
That's right. So we're not going to scroll down too far because I'm sure Lisa is completely deserving.
Yes.
And hopefully she wins sometime. So that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so what else? You got the commendable program.
Yep,
you
the
got
commendables.
the Know Your Mission continuation. Okay.
Yep. We're doing a lot with policies, too.
Yes. Policies.
Joe loves that.
I do so much.
So we have worked recently to get the anti-bullying policy incorporated into the Code of Ethical Standards.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Yep, that was a pretty big deal. We're excited about that. We also are working with HR right now, so with Joe and Donna and Tanya, to work with employee evaluations and get that process smooth and going, and make sure that we can track everything in terms of what's coming in.
Yeah, plug.
So,
hang on, here it is right now. There's a ton of resources available for supervisors online for performance evaluations. We've circulated a couple of emails, but if somehow you've missed those, we've asked all supervisors to do their evaluations by April 30th. And unless you already have one on file for that employee for this current fiscal year, and then in that case, there's not necessarily to do another one. That has been a huge push that the Staff Council has been involved in because performance evaluations have fluctuated between being one of those mandatory things or one of those recommended things, and we don't really now know. Now we have a policy that sort of mandates that they're done, and we have some practices to get them done in a timely manner, and Staff Council had a lot to do with that.
Yep. And the fact that we can track them now, we're tracking them and making sure, okay, they're getting turned in on time and they're being handled the way that they should. So
okay, let me ask you to dig just a little bit deeper on that. Why was performance evaluation such a big deal to the Staff Council?
Because it was a big deal to staff.
Okay.
And that's really
That
why
doesn't count as your answer, though. You have to tell me why.
Well, I think it's because a lot of staff members came to Staff Council and said, we either aren't getting evaluations, or whenever we get evaluations, it's not consistent. We're not really being told, okay, this is what you're doing well, this is what you aren't doing well compared to the job description. There were also just questions of, what should happen in an evaluation? We don't even know what should happen in an evaluation. It was a lot of lack of knowledge and lack of consistency. And so that's why we were just like, okay, this is something that we can really help to push, is to try to get to work with HR and get this fixed, because we know that you're doing a lot, that HR is doing a lot to make sure that it's the way that it should be, and it's basically just kind of bridging that gap, so helping staff to have that voice.
Yeah, and it's really nice to have a group like yours come and say, this is something that's important to us. A lot of times, and I know this can be true for a lot of support staff departments, sometimes it's a little bit of the extra momentum that you need.
Yep.
To be able to say, hey, this isn't just something that we identified and think should be important. This is something that there's a pretty large group of people who are affected by it, who are saying something has to change in this area. And so it gives us a little bit of a mandate to raise things up on the priority list and do something about them.
Well, and something that we noticed too was that there were a lot of resources that were out there and that we were offering to employees, but employees either didn't know where to look or just didn't look just because of their busy day lives.
Right.
So helping to increase awareness of, okay, this is where the videos are that tell you what to do. And this is where you can find information about, okay, this is what an evaluation should look like.
Right.
Helping to show, okay, this is where the resources are.
Right.
Instead of just not having that.
Very good. Very good. Thank
Yeah.
you. Let's see. Kirsty, I'm just running down the list until you jump in and interrupt me, and you're welcome to do that at any time.
Actually, I was going to ask if you could explain a little bit more about the green initiative that you guys have coming down the line.
Yes, so that's something that we've actually just kind of started getting in talks about. The Arizona Staff Council has really started working with recycling and trying to improve recycling on the Arizona Staff Council, or on the Arizona campus. And so Missouri is kind of trying to jump in as well. We don't have as much of an issue with recycling, but we're really trying to focus on energy preservation. So what can we do to help preserve all types of energy here on campus? There have been talks about putting together posters of, okay, these are the top 10 things that employees can do just in their day-to-day. Turn your computer off at night whenever you go home. Turn lights off whenever you leave your office. Things like that, just to increase awareness and education. So we're planning on rolling that out hopefully in 2019. So be on the lookout for some information about that. That should be coming soon.
And how do you get involved? So let's say, I know that you get involved initially by letting the staff council know, or your staff council representative know that you're interested. But
Yep.
once you have these initiatives, how do people then also get involved or contribute more?
I think a lot of it is staying in touch with your staff council representative, because they're kind of your link, your bridge between staff council and you. You can also, I know in Missouri, and Hal, maybe you can help me out with this in Arizona as well, the individual staff councils are typically open to members or to staff members if they're interested in coming to a meeting. So if you want to come to a meeting just to kind of see what things are like, how things are run, give your voice, then there's an open invitation. Is that correct in Arizona, Hal?
I don't know. I typically we've never had any visitors, so
Okay.
Would you like some?
I don't know. If I were leading, I would say yes or no, but I'm not. So
But I would say definitely through your staff council rep if you can't come to a meeting. Talk to them. If you want to be more involved in the initiatives, then we can find a way to work in somehow. We won't turn away help.
Yep.
So.
I think one of the main main ways that in Arizona that we keep in contact is that we send out a monthly, here's what happened at staff council meeting. We usually send updates on what's going on the campus, and but we also send out what we're discussing and what's happening in the staff council meeting.
Awesome.
And we do the same thing in Missouri as well. We send out quarterly updates. So if you see an email from staff council, don't ignore it, please, oh please. Please read it.
I have the same trouble.
Yes.
I don't know what it is.
Yep, it can happen very
I
easily.
mean, nobody gets that much email. I don't know why they don't read ours.
One of the
You don't
interesting-
have 5 hours a day to sit down and read emails, Joe?
Usually, no, I don't.
One of the interesting things, I think, as staff council chair last year, we're the voice for staff on several prominent committees, like the policies committee, the assessment committee, the diversity committee. So there are a lot of places that Theresa now represents the staff council on those high-level committees. So we have a voice on those high-level committees as well.
Well, and I think to tack on to that, something interesting to note, especially with the survey that was sent out earlier, we're going to be able to help be involved with some of the different implementations that are going to be coming forward from the results from that survey. So we're pretty excited about that as well, just to help improve the climate on both campuses.
And I know that it looks like we have a question about when the HLC visit is. Do either of you have a firm date for that?
I think it's late November, November, right, Joe?
That's correct. We've all got our deadlines coming up, and I think you guys have been involved in that as well, for getting the reports done. But yeah, their actual visit's like second week of November. And what's great is the accrediting committee's been telling us about this for 2 years or 3 years. It feels like 5 years.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, sometime in the next decade, those reviewers are going to come. We got to start now. And at the time, I think we all rolled our eyes. We were like, oh, geez, I have stuff due next week. Okay.
Yeah.
But now they're here.
Now it's really real.
Well, and it's incredible the amount of work that has had to go into getting everything prepared and ready. And I know that, I heard you mention it, but the governing councils, which when we look at them, they're all shared governance bodies, right? So that you have staff council that gets to participate in all of the policy development and improvements and initiatives. Same with the faculty senate, same with groups like ACOD that works on diversity and inclusion. All of these groups that represent shared governance, the staff council has a huge role to play, not only in helping the university move forward, but when other groups scrutinize us from the outside and have some authority to scrutinize how we behave and how we operate, having a strong and robust shared governance structure is really important to them. And I really think, so I've worked here for 4 years now, in the past 2 years, the staff council has really come into a role of making substantive, critical improvements and being involved in ways that I'm not sure they actually have in the past. But this group specifically has really grown up and into the role of representing the staff and advocating for them, and being able to put tangible results to that effort. So you guys have done a fantastic job, and I've been really impressed. I know under Hal's leadership and now under yours, the staff council has done some fantastic things in the last couple of years, and so now the expectations are just so
even higher,
burdensome that you look stressed out, and I understand. Okay, Kirsty, we got to go to a break, right?
Actually, let's do one more thing since we still have
We're
them.
not going to go to a break.
Is there anything that you, since we still have the staff council here and they serve faculty and they have faculty audience right now, is there one last thing you'd like to sort of ask of your faculty or see from your faculty since you are getting them involved into staff council?
I think something that we really just want to see or hear is your suggestions, your voice. So if you have suggestions on what you'd like to see, could be policy-wise, it could be department-wise, small or big. If you have any suggestions, let us know, let your staff council rep know. If you want to see what we're doing, go to the portal, to the University Staff Council page, look at our minutes. We have all of our minutes posted from our past meetings, so take a look at those and just try to get as involved as you want to be. We really want to make sure that we are true representatives of staff. So if you have suggestions or anything at all, let us know.
And I know here in Arizona, when we have our monthly meetings, every suggestion is discussed, no matter how small. So I echo what Theresa said.
Very good.
Fabulous. All right, well, we do have a commercial now. I think we have Lisa's Sim Lab, especially with a congratulations to their team on winning the National Sim Competition in Washington, D.C. So let's go ahead and take a look at that.
I'm Lisa Archer. I'm the Director of Simulation and Performance Assessment at ATSU University. I'm also the Training Center Coordinator for the American Heart Association Training Center that's located right here on KCOM's campus. I started at ATSU in March of 2014, and I have loved every minute of it. My office is located in the Interprofessional Education Building at 500 West Jefferson on KCOM's campus. So I'm a registered nurse by trade, and I've been practicing in healthcare for 30 years, with my most recent experience at Northeast Regional Medical Center in Kirksville, Missouri, which is a wonderful partner for KCOM's campus. One thing I like to do for fun is to sing. I love to sing. I love to take my dog for walks around Thousand Hills Park. It's beautiful. And I love eating dinner on my patio with my husband and my son. ATSU is a fantastic learning institution, and so when I came, I didn't really see a whole lot of things that needed to be changed, but some of the things that we have brought to realism is having students come in on a more regular basis to do simulations, and so the clubs have really embraced that, and so that's been kind of fun bringing the clubs in. And we're getting ready to introduce an immersion room, which is going to surround our students with the sights and sounds of the real scene, and so it really raises the fidelity of our simulations, and I think the students are going to really love that. We have 3 projectors mounted from the ceilings, and they are short throw projectors, and they shoot video production on the walls, and so when you walk into the room you feel like you're stepping into the real scene, and it's all recorded video. So they'll be on 3 different walls, and so say we've got a sports medicine club that's wanting to do an asthma attack on the football field, so what will be projected on the wall is the sights and scenes of an inside a football stadium, for example. Or Wilderness Medicine Club will have sights and scenes of the mountains or the lake or some babbling brook around them, and a patient's gone down during a hike, and so they have to take care of that patient in that setting. So it really just raises the fidelity of the simulation. It's gonna be really fun. Our immersion room, and it's definitely, you can see in the beginning phases, but we have the walls prepped and the surround sound in place, and so we have 3 projectors here that are ready to go up into the ceiling, be mounted, and then we'll be able to project the sights and sounds on the wall that really make students feel like they're fully immersed in the sights and sounds during their specialized HPS lab experiences. So this is my control room, and so we have 15 rooms, and everybody stands outside, or all of our fellows sit out here and run controls for the simulations that are happening inside the room. So they know as much about the simulation as we do, who write it. So it's a very functioning lab with computers and controls and mics outside of every room. This is our control center, and so we're able to see what's happening in each individual room, including our big classrooms and debriefing rooms across the hall. And so we can run all of our simulations from this particular control station, or each room can have their own individual simulation going on with an individual instructor in each room. But we're able to control it from this control center. It's kind of cool. So this is one of our 8 3G simulators that we have here. It's the current generation of high fidelity simulators through Laerdal. We have 8 of these guys. One little fun fact is that each one costs the school $60,000. So we're very blessed to have them. The number one question that I get asked is, why does he wear sunglasses? And that's because their pupils constrict and dilate. And so while they're under the lights, when the machines are on, their pupils are constantly constricting and dilating, and we've blown a motor, and they're like $8,000 a piece. So if we put sunglasses on them, that's a $4 fix as opposed to an $8,000 replacement. So that's one fun fact. And then We have a lot of real things in here that are real hospital kinds of settings that help our students to become familiar with the sights and sounds of a real clinical setting. So real ER bed, real crash cart, real defibrillator, and the patient monitoring looks pretty real when it comes up, so they're able to go through their simulations and be exposed to real stuff that they'll be experiencing when they get in the clinical setting. Kind of cool. This is our junior simulator, and he is like an 8-year-old child, and so our pediatric club is going to be working with them, and we're going to be moving our pediatric lab into here, doing some different things in here with Dr. Julie Hessler, and so we're pretty excited about that. And this guy really likes his ATSU ball cap. Vicky is our birthing simulator, and she has had 527 babies since September of 2015 when she came to KCOM. She's sleeping now. She just had a baby, so I'm going to sing a lullaby to her. Lullaby and good night. Oh, wait a second. She's asleep. Let's go see the baby and sing the lullaby to the baby. Lullaby and good night. La 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 la.
Literally one of the coolest places I have ever visited. I think Lisa Archer and her team there at the Human Patient Simulation Center do fantastic work. If you're lucky enough to get a tour of the Kirksville campus as a new employee, aside from the pleasure of Jason and I's company during those orientations, we also go over there and make a long stop, and Lisa lets us touch them and goof around with them and take blood pressures, and some of this, all the things they do with simulation technology is amazing. And the way Lisa has made simulation technology part of the curriculum for our programs here, and the way they've done the same thing there in Mesa has been pretty remarkable. I think they do great work. Okay, we're back, and for the second segment, I really wanted to talk about how today is National Joe Day. Someone texted me that just a little bit ago. It's National Joe Day, but I didn't prepare a presentation. So instead, Jason actually came prepared, so we're going to go ahead and let him do the thing he prepared to do, and maybe we'll do National Joe Day next month. I don't know. I'm looking at you, producers. Put it on the schedule. In the meantime, we have Jason Haxton with us. Now, listen, Jason is quite the asset for the university.
Thanks, Joe.
I get to do this. So every time we have a new employee orientation on the Kirksville campus, Jason is our introductory speaker. And that's because, and I say this every time, in fact, I had to start putting rules in place for Jason that he wasn't allowed to interject on my speech whenever I introduce him, because Jason's one of these people that it's difficult to overstate how much we probably take for granted the fact that he's just bouncing around our campus all the time. Jason is one of the world's foremost experts on the history and the tradition and the legacy of osteopathic healthcare. He is. It's true. And here's how I know. About half of the time, Jason is hosting some international visitor or group of international visitors who's sort of making the trek to Kirksville to come and learn about the heritage and the legacy because they're fascinated. And they know that this is the place, and they know that Jason is the guy. And when they can't get here to visit Jason, they will fly him to all sorts of places in the world. And so if he's not here, it's because he's in some either tropical or historic or beautiful location where they are discovering the benefits of osteopathic health care. A lot of times we're seeing this right in Europe, Eastern Europe, and Europe and Canada, and you're all over the place.
Asia.
Right, in Asia, because of its cost effectiveness and its emphasis on primary care. Jason is the guy that everybody wants to talk to. And they'll literally give him a microphone and they'll say, you have 2 days. Instill us with your philosophy. And he's here. Here he is, sitting right here. We didn't have to pay him any money to come sit at this desk. And he's going to talk to us today about Dr. Still's American Indian heritage. It's important, especially I've heard you give the speech about the diversity that's sort of balled up in the founding of osteopathic healthcare, and this school specifically at KCOM. And Dr. Still carried a lot of that even in his bloodstream, right? And that's what you want to talk about today. So there's my very long introduction. You did a great job not interjecting, by the way. But we're really pleased to have Jason with us. He is the director of the Still Memorial Library. And what do you got today?
Well, with the museum, and I am just coming back
Museum, right.
the museum. But we're just coming back from the AAO, where the true purist manipulators are, and it's a gathering of all through the 53 recognized, 35 recognized schools, 53 in the process, international. So it's nice to be back from Dallas, where the purist of the tenets and Dr. Still's use of manipulation comes from. And they're all fascinated by Dr. Still because he truly was. We have a legacy from a person that was so altruistic in giving everything he had. You know, he's a great role model for all of us and this journey of life, and that's what he really saw this as. We're on this journey. And so we're going to talk about his American Indian heritage, and hopefully you guys can see the PowerPoint there. And there goes my water. And as Dr. Still, like I said, here's a picture of him at the founding school and a picture of him often carrying a bag of bones to explain osteopathic healthcare because x-rays and those kind of technology that we later had weren't available then. I think we need to begin. We look at our first president and our current president. We've got 125 years of history and 100 years since Dr. Still passed, and this legacy is growing. It grows out through the United States and worldwide. Dr. Still said to understand something, and if we understand his American Indian heritage, we need to go before the thing, which would be Dr. Still himself. So let's look at Dr. Still's grandparents, which I think is kind of fun. On his father's side, Abram, we have Boaz. And Boaz descends from England, wealthy bishop to Queen Elizabeth, so really some famous heritage going there. And he married Mary Lida. And the Lida name is actually a Cherokee name of half Dutch, half North Carolina Indian. And so A.T. Still gets his American Indian heritage through his grandmother, Mary Lida, which was Cherokee, now identified as the Lumbee in North Carolina on the Lumbee River. So that's kind of fascinating. On his mother's side, she actually is part of a frontier family, wealthy, revolutionary, commanders and such. And her father was actually kidnapped by the Shawnee Indians that were in Abe's Valley at that time and sold into slavery. That was to warn off the Moors, her family, to go away, leave our land. And when they didn't, there was kind of a massacre going on. And so what ends up happening is because he was sold in slavery, he survives, comes back. And so we've got this interesting dynamic of a frontier woman encroaching on Indian lands and American Indian blood marrying and going to serve the Shawnee Indian eventually. So kind of an interesting perspective. The Shawnee themselves were not a warlike tribe, but they did defend their people and land, and that's what they felt they were doing at that time. When we look at the Lumbee Cherokee tribe, we can see the deep-set eyes, we see the high cheekbones, which actually carries through the Still family. Again, they're recognized as a tribe, but do not get financial support because of the mixture of the Dutch genetics from the North Carolina. And so here we have A.T. Still's father, Abram. And again, if you look at the eyes, the cheekbones, we go back to the Lumbee tribe and look at this picture, and we go back to Abram. We can see really the genetics coming through A.T. Still's father, Abram, very obviously. And again, he was both a doctor and a preacher, healing both body and spirit. And so that's where we get that kind of attitude in osteopathic healthcare. Now, the Shawnee actually had a written language. This is actually from the 1840s, this newspaper, long before A.T. Still even showed up in Kansas, to work and help heal and educate the Shawnee tribes with his father. And so the Shawnee had the belief in the Great Father, so kind of a monotheistic belief. And if you do good, you go to good places. You do bad, karma catches up with you, and bad things will happen. So in many ways, when Abram Still came to preach to the Shawnee about God and the golden rule of doing good, it really was okay because it's what they already believed, and they thought that was fine. And so we have some writings of Dr. Still, Andrew Taylor, talking about when his father went on the mission, he had a good bit of money, but he trusted in loaning it to his mentor in Missouri, who literally took the money and ran. And they did not see any sign of that money for 9 years. Very desperate in this wild land with no backup plan. But this is where A.T. Still learned to hunt and survive off of nature, and really made him kind of impervious to money in general. At first he said, I really wanted it. But as I grew to be independent and never needed money, I basically found that it had no motivation for me. And this is one of the reasons Dr. Still gave so much of the money away from the college and free scholarships, and they eventually put him on an allowance because, as he said, money meant nothing to him. We have an interesting situation in this story of American Indian heritage with A.T. Still's daughter Blanche. And Blanche also founded the museum in 1934. Blanche has a letter from when she was 74 years old. This was written in 1948. Her father had been dead, A.T. Still, for 31 years. And yet she could still write Shawnee and knew the language. So it was really brought to her as a child and really enforced in A.T. Still. Now remember, Blanche was born in Kirksville. She never was on the Shawnee reservation. For all I know, never even met a Shawnee Indian. And yet she was able to give Dr. Still's prayer in Shawnee and the words. And so it's kind of fascinating how Dr. Still felt this was important to his children. Dr. Still, when he was thinking, we have a lot of his notes, would use the Shawnee language, thinking that it helped maybe say more than the English language could and bring him into ideas. So I think this is funny in looking at an invention he was making, some kind of contraption to align the body, and any meaning me, Kayla meaning you, I do this, you do that. Basically it works together.
Could we ask too, I'm seeing a lot of these sort of writings and original documents. Are these all stored at the museum?
They are. They're available for you to see. And actually, if you go to the museum website, it'll take you to the digital heritage where you can see all the originals. So they're searchable by just typing in. You get the Word document and the original, which is kind of nice. So thanks for bringing that up. In this slide, we actually have a patient of Dr. Still who had a huge tumor and was pregnant. No doctor would touch this woman for fear of killing the baby and the mother. And A.T. Still, using manipulative techniques, was able to release the tumor, and this almost 50 pounds of water poured out. I mean, an amazing amount of a watery tumor within this woman. Again, notice that she's sitting on an American Indian blanket. Dr. Still kept these always on the instruments, the chairs, the treatment tables where patients would be, feeling that it would help comfort and give a spiritual presence of the American Indian to these people. So when the baby was born perfectly well, she said, well, go ahead and name my child. So A.T. Still named this baby Nemanthe, basically Still got her last name. And Nemanthe is basically in the Shawnee a fish swimming in water, representing her life with the tumor as she was developing. This is actually a blanket at the museum that Dr. Still always kept on his treatment table. It's a Navajo blanket with what's called Germantown design of little people all through it. And so again, Dr. Still had very many items that are in the museum. We were doing a program in Mesa at the end of May with Vicki Driving Hawk, and you'll get to see some of these actual artifacts in Mesa. So Dr. Still would go into a meditative state, we're told by students, where he'd literally kind of take his staff, standing up, lean back, open his mouth, and then go into almost a trance, and then come out speaking in the Shawnee language to answer questions on healthcare and medicine. So some people said, was he playing a joke on them? Was it all mumbo jumbo? But actually the students themselves says, we don't think so, because the information he came out was very relevant, and maybe he was using the native language to zero in on ideas, and then he would translate to the English language. And maybe there were some aspect of Indian guides that he was able to tune into. But anyway, what we feel is Dr. Still always said that there are spirits around us, and it's a shame that we don't listen to those. So the Shawnee language itself is polysynthetic morphology, but it basically means there's a lot of information in a few words. And so this might be why Dr. Still chose this language when he was thinking and looking into problems. Dr. Still himself used the word for doctor in Shawnee, Hakonethawa. Luckily, Dr. Blue Spruce has done all of our translations and readings for the Shawnee language, but he wrote it in his own language, in his own handwriting, that Dr. Still was very, again, in tune to the American Indian and felt very connected. When someone challenged him once, Dr. Still says he can speak the Indian language. He goes, no, I can't, and went into basically a whole dialogue until finally the legislature said, okay, we get it. You speak the Shawnee language, and was very proud of it.
Don't challenge me on this.
Don't challenge me. Dr. Still was said to have what's called an Indian gait, where he went up on his toes, and he was so silent. Often he would appear, and people would just turn around, and there'd be a shadow on them. It would startle them. But Dr. Still loved to see what the behavior of a person that was caught off guard, what they did next, was very telling of who they were as a person. And so, again, Dr. Still looked at the body and the spirit, which was, again, very American Indian in tune. And we had a student that was dying, and they didn't want Dr. Still to know about it. And so basically they kept it kind of away from him. But he walks around, he hears the dialogue in town. They ask about Asa Willard, the student who's dying. A.T. Still says, what student that's dying? He goes over, visits Asa, and Asa has this horrible fever that's been going on. And fever is not a bad thing. It actually is a fighting disease. And Dr. Still said, but what was more important was your attitude about your illness. Are you giving up? Because if you're giving up, there's no hope for you. We know an optimistic patient does better. And A.T. Still was like, Asa, are you sticking with me? Are you going to fight this? And Asa agreed that, yes, I would. He goes, and then things will be fine. The fever will burn out the disease, and you're going to be fine. And Asa was, and went on to live into his 90s and do good things as the AOA president and for osteopathic medicine in the western half of the United States. So we come kind of to the closing of our program, and sometimes when we look at Dr. Still's humble clothes, the walking stick, the glasses, he kind of reminds us of another very peaceful and altruistic man who at the end of his life gave away his glasses to a young man to see, his sandals, so someone could travel. And Dr. Still was very much the same, always giving and being a great role model for us. And so this is your museum. We hope you have a chance to come visit us in Kirksville. We often do exhibits down in Mesa and have a great, rich history.
Wow, thank you, Jason. That's
There it is.
a lot of information really fast. For practitioners, especially of OMM students and faculty who are listening today, what's like the one takeaway that you'd like them to have now that they know A.T. Still's Shawnee heritage? What would you like them to sort of walk away with now understanding that?
And I think that is, when we look at diversity in populations, it's not always as obvious. we were fortunate because actually Dr. Still's great-grandchildren live in Arizona, and recently with the DNA testing that's available, agreed to actually be tested and give samples and access to that material, which I think is very special. And so any of the professors or students that want to work with us in interpreting the genetic material as a way of proving Dr. Still's heritage, certainly I welcome you to contact me at the museum. And again, looking at Dr. Still was open osteopathic health care. And it really is a philosophy. It's not just manipulation, as some people think, but it's a way of actually diet, exercise, mental health, and looking at abnormal and normal in the body. But the good thing about Dr. Still was it was meant to be an international, it was for all people, all genders, and Dr. Still was truly not just speaking on those things, but took the action to live what he taught, treat the poor, accept, and was very disappointed in his lifetime not to see a black student because of the money and cost. It was very difficult for a student to get into the school, but he basically, within a few years, the first black osteopathic school was in Washington, D.C. And Dr. Still promoted all these ideas, women having the opportunity, this Women's History Month, and Dr. Still broke kind of the mold and gave women the opportunity to really have careers and do great things in their lives. So again, as we look at Dr. Still, he's a great role model and had great ideas for health care that we can promote to our patients.
Well, so we've got about 4 minutes left. I know that we had a question to the Staff Council representatives, but please also go ahead and make some time to go to the museum if you're in Missouri. And when Jason comes down for the exhibit with Vicky Driving Hawk, if you have further questions, he's a wealth of knowledge, so please talk to him. But in the meantime, with that Staff Council question, we've been asked about staff assemblies, especially in SOMA, and I think maybe one of the ASHES. So if you could explain what staff assemblies are.
So the staff assemblies are organizations that predated the Staff Council, and they are in 2 of our schools. SOMA and ASHS have staff assemblies, and each of them elect a representative to the student, to the Staff Council. I call it Student Council sometimes, I apologize. Staff Council, and whereas most of us are appointed, they have elected offices, so they sort of feed into the Staff Council in the Arizona campus. And the Missouri campus, I don't believe the Missouri campus has any staff assemblies. I believe the Staff Council is sort of the staff assembly when KCOM was around.
Right. We just have the Staff Council in Missouri.
Correct.
Very good.
And that's the difference. There's a Staff Council on each of the campuses, and each of the schools have a representative, as I said, and the senior vice president departments have a representative, and then we come together under one umbrella quarterly. Is that what it is? We come together quarterly and meet as a university staff council combined.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
That's a lot. Well, hey, as much as I would love to hang around here the rest of the afternoon, and I'm sure everyone would stick with us for all of that time, it's time for us to go. I've got 2:56, 7-ish, and so I guess we need to say thanks for taking the time to spend with us for another, I think, successful episode of the Lunch and Learn series. You guys were great. It wasn't you. It took us a second to get organized, but I think it worked out okay. Theresa and Hal, thanks for sharing information on the University Staff Council, and thanks for the great work you're doing. Jason, as always, I feel like we should pay you or something. Being able to have you here and share some of your wealth of knowledge with us is always welcome. We appreciate you taking the time. And thank you. We hope you learned something. Hopefully you frantically scribbled down the mission statement somewhere and you are ready at a moment's notice. I recommend writing it on your left arm, right up in here somewhere, so that when you read it, they don't really notice.
We'll be by to quiz you.
Yeah, watch out for Theresa and Hal. They don't always wear their uniforms when they're playing Mission Police. So sometimes they're undercover. No, this was great. Thanks for joining us. Kirsty, as always, it's been a pleasure. You make us look halfway competent, so I'm glad you're around. And we're going to put together another great episode, and we will look forward to having you join us. Until then, have a great rest of your day.